Windows Server 2019 System Administration. Welcome back everybody. I'm Prakash Pradhan, your trainer for this entire series. In today's topic, we're going to talk about the domain trust. Okay. Now let's see the scenario or the meaning of the domain trust. In your organization, let's say you're having your own domain, that's a viatech.com. So all of your client, okay, your hosts, whoever are the member of this domain, they are going to log in this domain environment using their own network credential. And whatever resources are being shared in viatech.com, they are going to access it using their own credential. Now, similarly, if I go to my right hand side, there is another one domain I have made it for you all. That's a global.com. So in a global.com also, whatever objects are being created, whichever the stations or the hosts are being joined into a domain, they can log in their domain and they can access the resources. That is the normal way of logging in your DNS or the domain environment. But when we talk about the domain trust, let's understand the meaning of this first. Domain trust means two domains are trusting to each other. Okay, I repeat again, domain trust means viatech.com is trusting a global.com and global.com is trusting a viatech.com. So here one question rises over here, why do I have to do this? Isn't it? It's a valid question. The answer is, sometime what happens, two companies, they get merged. They are merged now. One of the company name is viatech.com and the second company name is global.com. Now they are merged. So in that case, if the company is merged, okay, let's say they are in two different geographical location or the distance. Let's say viatech.com in New York. It's in New York. Global.com is in India. That means any of the client of this New York domain viatech.com, whenever they visit another one branch office of India, okay, they should be able to log in using the domain of global.com, but their credential will not be used from the global.com. They are going to use their own credential from the viatech.com. That means if there is a one user called ABC or let's say XYZ, so xyz@viatech.com users should be able to log in the branch office of global.com, any PC in the network. So this is your normally a domain trust. That means a client from the one domain should be able to log in using the other PC or using the other network domain that is being trusted, but using their own credential. That means, I repeat again, the viatech.com client should be able to log in a global.com, though their domains are completely different. So that is the matter of trust. Okay, now over here, I would like to show you another one thing. When we talk about the domain trust, we have two types of trust actually. Okay, domain trust, we are having two types of trust. One is your one-way trust, second one is the two-way trust. Two-way trust means any client, okay, any object that is created over here, I mean to say, any client of viatech.com can come to the global.com, log in and do their work using their own credential. Now any client of global.com should be similarly able to log in using their own credential in a viatech.com domain. So that's a two-way trust. But there is a one-way trust as well. One-way trust means only one way user can go authenticate and access their resources. If the global.com sets a one-way trust to the viatech, okay, that means the viatech members will be able to authenticate and log in a global.com. This is the one-way trust. Okay, but see over here, I repeat again, if the one-way trust is done from the global.com, the members of viatech.com will be able to log in a global.com. Okay, but if I go for the outgoing trust, in outgoing trust, the viatech.com client can go outside in a global.com and log in and do the same way that you are doing in a reverse order. Okay, so two types of trust, internal trust and external trust. Okay, I mean to say one-way trust and two-way trust. One way means only one way and two-way means both the domain client can come to each other's network, log in and do their work. Now again, the one-way trust is into two types. Okay, that is the incoming and outgoing. As the meaning is only saying, either you can come or you can go in your network. That is the concept of your incoming and outgoing domain. So let's see the practical implementation of this one. So there are certain requirements in order to configure this domain trust. First, if I see this is my global.com domain. In the global.com domain IP configuration, I should be setting my alternate DNS IP to the second partner. Let's see over here. I have already set an IP address for you because see, this series is gonna be quite long. So if I go to my IP over here, see my domain IP is, that means my preferred domain is 25. That means I am a global.com, but I have also set the alternate DNS as 100. That's a viatech.com. So let's see practically over here. So if I ping over here, ping let's say global.com, my IP is 25. Okay, now if I ping viatech.com, see the IP address is 100. That means in a global.com, the alternate DNS is set as a viatech.com, second domain. Now similarly, okay, if I go to my viatech.com, so over here also alternate DNS is set for the global.com because we are going to set the two-way trust. So they should be pointing or facing to each other. So let's see over here. If I say my IP address of this viatech.com, see this is the viatech.com and this is the your second server, that's a global.com. So I can bring it from here to global.com as well. So it should be able to answer. Global.com is 25. See, successfully done. Why? Because they should be facing to each others as an alternate DNS IP. Otherwise, your client from the one server will not be able to log in using their credential to other server. This is the number one requirement. And I also suggest you to turn off your firewall because sometimes firewall may not allow you to go from one domain to the next domain. Since it is a lab environment, you can easily turn off. Okay. Now let's see the next thing. Where is this domain trust exist? In order to see the domain trust, you need to go to tools and go to the Active Directory domains and trust. Now when I go to the viatech.com, right click and property, you see a one tap trust, but there is no trust over here. See, there is no trust at all. So similarly, if I go to my second server, that's a global.com, over there as well, there is no trust between any domain because I have not said this. I want to show you. So that's why, see, go to trust, there is no domain. That means the member of global.com domain user, okay, or let's say the any user that's been created in a global.com will not be able to log in a viatech.com. Why? Because there is no trust. They do not trust to each other. So let's see setting up this domain trust. Now I will go to my main server, then I'll go to your domain and trust. Right click your domain, this domain name, properties, go to trust and add new trust. Click next. Now you will have to write the name of domain. Whom do you want to trust? In our case, global.com. I would like to trust to global.com domain. That means I would like to set the two-way trust sitting at the viatech.com. I would like to trust to the global.com. So what's going to happen now after we complete this one? Any client, whoever is the member of this viatech.com, can come to the next branch office of global.com and they can log in using the credential of viatech.com. They don't have to go to their main head office. Go to next. Now, which trust you are going to do? External trust or the forest trust? This one you need to be careful before you set up or before you move to the next one. Okay, external trust and the forest trust. External is actually your domain trust. That means your two different domain having two different extensions actually. Let's say .com.edu. If I go to this forest trust, in that case it will be your transitive two-way. In that case, I mean to say you are using only common extension, that means .com. Next, now it's asking you select the direction for this trust. Remember I told you there are two types of trust in a domain. Number one is one-way trust, second one is a two-way trust. So two-way trust means a client from one domain can go to each other's domain and log in easily. But I do have option for one-way trust. One way is also incoming and outgoing. So it has already clearly mentioned over here, users in this domain can be authenticated in the specified domain. That is a one-way incoming for another one. But in our case, we are going to set the two-way trust. That means the client of one domain can easily go to next domain, and the next domain's client also can come to your domain, that means viatech.com, and log in using their own credential. Then go to next. Now it is saying, would you like to set this domain trust in both the domain one by one? Didn't get? I'll explain. This means right now I'm setting up a domain trust sitting at the viatech.com. So viatech.com intend to trust your global.com, but this setting is done only in a viatech.com. But the global.com has not done any setting. Global.com is not going to trust you. Okay, so in that case, I'm going to use this both. That means both the computers domain trust I'm going to set from here only. Yes, you're right. You might be thinking, definitely now it's going to ask you the administrative credential of the global.com. Yes. So next, now here you'll have to write the credential of your global.com, because you are going to set both the trust in a same server. That means sitting at the viatech.com, when I set the domain trust using the credential of my global.com, so same setting will be done automatically to the global.com as well. So let's give the credential of my global.com. Do not forget, please, this is the credential of global.com, not the viatech.com. So administrator, I'm going to give the password. I hope I have not made any mistake providing a password. I often make, pressing a wrong key. So now, this is asking you, are you going to do this forest-wide authentication or selective authentication? No, both the credentials should be, go to the each other. So I prefer to go to the forest-wide authentication, not to the selective authentication. And it's going to ask you twice, forest-wide authentication to the global.com as well as viatech.com. Next, okay, forest-wide authentication. Select the scope. Of course, I would like to go for the both. So that's why it is asking you. So it's saying over here, you have selected the following trust setting. This domain viatech.com is specified domain global.com. That means sitting at the server viatech.com, you are going to trust the global.com. And this is two-way trust. Okay, forest, it's not there. So it's a two-way trust. So next, it's going to your global.com, trying to authenticate, and then only it's going to say yes. So next, now do not confirm the outgoing trust. Of course, I would like to go for the outgoing trust. So next, I would like to go for it. Incoming also, because incoming and outgoing both has to be done. In that case only we have selected your two-way trust. Finish. Now see here, I'm in a viatech.com, but I do trust a global.com. See again, go to the properties, trust, I'm in a viatech.com. Now it also trusts the global.com. In the same way, I need to go to my second server. That means the global.com. So the global.com also should have trust your viatech.com. I told you the setting is done from the one server using the authentication of next server. So it should get listed over there. Otherwise, what we did, entire thing is all in vain. Trust, congratulations. You see, you are in a global.com, but you trust the viatech.com also. So this way you can set your domain trust. That's a two-way trust. Now in our next video, what we are going to do now, we are going to see the practical when that one client from your viatech.com goes to the branch office of your global.com, and the viatech.com users should be able to use their own credential in your next domain. So that would be in our next video. So if you have clearly understood this concept, how the domain trust works, please do like and subscribe, and do watch our next video where the client is going to log in using their own credential in a next domain as well. Thank you.